Hello everyone, and yeah, we should be live. Let me just check that my stream is connected and running. That should take a moment, but yeah, do drop a 1 in the chat to let me know, but I think we're live, and of course I need to know that my audio is good. I always seem to foul that up. So thank you all for being here. Really good to see you all. We have AK, I know XYZ was here earlier. Just Janice, welcome, good to see you. Dan Simpson, welcome. Yeah, great to have you here. Thank you for the binge watching. Glad you liked it. Sergeant Grinch, welcome. Moon Tea, interesting name. Interesting name. Del Piero, welcome. Where are you? I'm right here. Yes, guys. So, yeah, as you know, always questions drop in the chat. I'll try and answer. And yeah, today's talk is about nonsense. So we're going to be talking about nonsensicism, which, as we've discussed in the previous 3 sections, it's really very much related to, well, it's satanic. It is anti-Christian. It is the inverse and the opposite of everything we believe as Christians. And of course, it sees God as Satan. It sees the world as evil. And if they are consistent with that belief, then of course this changes how they view the world. This changes how they view morality. And this would explain a lot that goes wrong in the world. Dragon, welcome. Good to see you. It was great speaking with you. Jim Thunder just finished the lasagna. We'll watch later. I'm too full. No worries. PJ, welcome. All right. Okay, let me dive in. And let me change screens. Let me just get back to my usual. Here we go. So, OSC, first time catching a live question. Will you do a series on the Freemasons? I haven't addressed the... Okay, in my Gnosticism, Islam, KKK series, I do talk about the Freemasons. I have not made them a huge focus of the work that I do. Let me just silence the connection from my phone to my computer, so it doesn't... I haven't made them a huge focus, but I have shown the Islamic connections into the Freemasons and the Freemasons to the Shriners, who are explicitly Muslim. And of course, in the past, I've talked about the Muslim Brotherhood that was founded by a Freemason and is the world's largest secret society. So there's a strong connection between Islam, which also claims they founded the Freemasons. So I have spoken about that. My next topic is to talk about Islamic occultism through Hermes Trismegistus, which is the Egyptian mystery religion, the Egyptian god that is supposedly the one that brought the hikmah, the knowledge, the wisdom, the gnosis into Islam, and is the spiritual or the literal ancestor, progenitor of Muhammad. So Islam claims to be the inheritor of the secret knowledge of the Egyptian mystery religion, which wants to compete with Moses. So yeah, make of that what you will. So that's kind of something that I'm working on putting together now for the future, because I need to talk about the occult origins and the occult message within Islam, which is not that well hidden. Let me see, any messages? Can you delve into and expose the Gnosticism of the Zohar? Yeah, look, I have not spent a lot of time speaking about the Gnosticism in the Zohar, but certainly the rabbis have certainly gone off the rails somewhere. Now, this would not be to imply every rabbi, because it's not necessarily a part of the doctrine. The Zohar is not the Talmud. But of course, when I talk about the Talmud, people lose their minds, because 99.9% of the time, people are just lying about the Talmud. I probably will do a talk on the Talmud with Sam in the future, and also with Kennedy Hall. So I'm supposed to do... I was supposed to do a talk with Kennedy on Tuesday, and I should do it this Tuesday coming. How Mormonism fits? Yeah, I have notes on Mormonism. It's not a high priority. Welcome, Nick. Good to see you. XYZ, thanks for showing up. Great to see you. James Alexander, welcome. And yeah, let's see. Where are we? And let me... Okay, guys, I should dive into this, but before I do that, let me show you guys something. You know that I do things that are fairly controversial. Okay, I'm on page 25. So lately, I've been delving into Protestant history, as everyone knows, and this has been very upsetting for some. Apparently, I'm dividing the church by speaking the truth. I wasn't aware the truth is divisive, except apparently it is. But as you know, Martin Luther has no bearing on the Reformation or on Protestantism, and that the 5 solas were falling out of the air and inspiring people through the water or something. So so I've learned recently that Martin Luther has nothing to do with the Reformation. Martin Luther, his theology has nothing to do with Protestantism. And Martin Luther really just should be thrown under the bus, and the less said, the better. However, I was told that the precursors to Martin Luther, of course, can be found in Jan Hus, in James Waldo of the Waldensians, and of course in John Wycliffe. So I would love to see someone explain how their theologies and how their doctrines merge and are equal, and then of course how they can be traced back to the 1st century and back to the apostles and Jesus. That would be a really nice thing to see. I'm hoping someone can show me that. In the meanwhile, I've been doing my own research, and here's a question that was very, very important during the Reformation. Where was your church before Luther? And this is a paper called Claims of the Antiquity of Protestantism Examined. And wow, OSC, thank you very much. So thank you, that's really kind. Welcome, Ben Yosef and Fia Vasconcelos. Good to see you. Under the carriage, no buses. Yes, Just Janice. I also, what I did learn recently was there were no buses in the 15th, in the 1500s, sorry, the 16th century. So, okay, I've been looking at this, right? And I can tell you that the historical explanations of how Protestantism links to the 1st century is an absolute clown show. And I'm being polite, it's a joke. It is ahistorical, hysterical stupidity. Right? Because when you look at the plethora of contradictory, arguing, squabbling Protestant sects, none of them can agree on a history of how this connects to that, connects to this guy, connects to that, connects to the 1st century. It's a complete and utter joke. And in fact, a large majority, it seems that a large majority of Protestant sects literally claim connection to outright heretics. I'm not talking people that could fall on either side of the fence, but where even Protestants would unambiguously state these people are raging heretics. Baptists especially, but many, from the Anglicans to the Calvinists, you name it, have all claimed that a bunch of heretics going back through history prove Protestant connection to the 1st century and to Jesus. I don't know how Gnostics and raving lunatic heretics prove an apostolic lineage, but hey, it does. And the fact is, these guys are arguing as to who and how and what. It's a complete and utter joke. So I will be talking about that purely because it annoys people, but it seems to annoy the right people. So I'll definitely be doing that, and I'd love to see someone talk about that. And of course, if in the future I do such a talk, I will invite various people to join me to discuss these matters, and they can drop their comments in the chat, and I will hopefully have the time to read a couple of them so that they can raise these points and we can talk about them. So I'll be free to invite them to join me in the chat in future. Okay, moving on from that, but this is a joke, trust me. So this is a really good paper. S.J. Barnett, Where Was Your Church Before Luther? Claims of the Antiquity of Protestantism Examined. And yeah, so this is a really enlightening paper. So I've got a few on this. I've got another one I'm working on here, and I've got some other notes that I'm working through. So yeah, I'm busy. I've spent the whole day reading. It's really fascinating. Jesus delivered 11 copies of the KJV to the apostles on a bus. This is a proven fact. Yes. It was a DHL bus, which was delivered from the airport. So they've not shown it how drinking from a poisoned theological well has led to any betterment to anyone in novel theology is intrinsically tied to Luther, to like it or not. Yes, James, that is the case. That is the case. And yeah, we'll be talking about that more. So, okay, let me dive into this. So we ended on this slide. If you have any more questions or comments about that, do add it in. I will try and keep up. I have to finish this today. I want to start something fresh and new tomorrow evening. I use Control F and Sola, and church fathers agree with me. No, Sola Scriptura. Look, I am an Anglican, okay? Or rather, I reject what the Anglican Church is doing today because I don't think they've been following their own doctrine. And if you read the history of the Anglican Church, they have been incoherently like a drunk driver swerving all over the road from this side to that side, believing this, believing that, professing this, professing that, inconsistently. Whereas one thing that I've noticed, Protestant doctrine, theology, ideas is inconsistent. It is literally all over the place, contradictory. Whereas you look at Catholic doctrine, it is consistent. That is a critical factor. It is consistent. What they said 2,000 years ago, they're saying today. Understand? That is a very important thing. Whereas if you are contradicting each other, or you've changed your mind and this week you have a different doctrine to last week, there are question marks. There's alarm bells going off there. Okay, we ended here. Okay, so we ended here on this slide. We've discussed magic. All right. Now let's have a look here. So actually, let me just bring this over and start fresh. Okay, Gnosticism. So this is one of the slides I just repurposed from another presentation, so I could include it here. So there are similarities with Allah in Gnosticism, right? The divine element returns to the spiritual realm when gnosis, special secret knowledge of the divine, is obtained. So salvation is based on obtaining the secret knowledge. Now within Islam, those who have the greatest knowledge, the science, the ilm, right? The ulama, the people of knowledge, the people of science, they have... Now remember, jihad is supposed to be the highest sacrament in Islam. Those who kill and are killed in jihad earn a reward that is 100 times greater than those who are good Muslims who die serving Allah. However, the scholars who have the secret knowledge, who practice the secret knowledge, they are even higher than those who practice jihad. So jihad is not the highest good within Islam. The secret knowledge is. So this is very, very similar to Islam. It's based on knowledge. Right now, we've discussed within the Reliance of the Traveler, within the Sharia, right? Knowledge. Welcome, Yeshua. On fire for Jesus apologetics. I'm new here. I want to deeply gain more insight of my understanding of Scripture and learn alongside. Welcome. Good to see you. Thank you. Eva, good to see you. Tex, it was levitating bus with Pontius the Pilate. Yeah, Pontius the Pilate. Yeah, well, now we're talking. So, Tom Gyokai, welcome. So, knowledge of the heart. Communally obligatory knowledge. Okay, what should be known within the Muslim community and what is allowed to lay Muslims. The religious sciences falsely so called, as we've discussed in the past. Okay, this worldly knowledge, right? Profane knowledge, recommended knowledge, subjects that are not sacred knowledge, unlawful knowledge, offensive knowledge, permissible knowledge, and of course, philosophy is impermissible knowledge. Right? It is not unlawful. It's unlawful for Muslims to study philosophy, right? Don't forget, philosophy is illegal for Muslims. So the superiority of sacred knowledge over devotions. So knowing the gnosis, right? Knowing this information puts the scholars ahead of people who devoutly practice their religious obligations. This secret knowledge puts them ahead of regular Muslims. Make a note of that. This shows the Gnostic influence in Islam. Say, are those who know and those who do not know equal? Well, because those with the gnosis are greater. Did Pontius have a God is my co-pilot bumper sticker? He might have. We can probably make a case for that, Dan. Yeah, we need to look into that. All right, let's continue. So Allah raises those of you who believe and those who have been given knowledge, whole degrees. So this tells us Islam prizes knowledge. Understand, this is not faith, this is knowledge, the gnosis. The superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is this is Muhammad speaking, is as my superiority over the least of you. So the learned Muslims are separated from the lay Muslim as much as Muhammad is separated from the lay Muslim. This is a major claim based on knowledge. So whoever Allah wishes well, He gives knowledge of religion. Sadly, He doesn't give the Dawah geniuses in the chat and the comments knowledge. I wish He did. But then they wouldn't be Muslim anymore. Okay, knowledge Allah makes easy for him. Okay, so whoever travels a path seeking knowledge. Okay, angels lower their wings for the seeker of knowledge, right? And endowed with sacred knowledge. The superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is like the superiority of the moon over all the stars. Why would, again, now we're back to the moon. If you've seen my monotheism series with the big moon, the pagan moon on top of every mosque, we've discussed the origins of that. So yeah, that goes back to the Babylonian religion and the moon god Shin. Thanks, Topiero. All right. The learned are the heirs of the prophets. Now that's a huge statement to make. Roman, thank you very, very much. I appreciate the support. Thank you. Freemason, secret knowledge. Yes. From Portugal, Rui Peña. Hey, I was really thinking, I have not been to Portugal yet. I would love to visit Lisbon and Porto. So definitely at some point, I haven't seen as much of Europe as I would like. So yeah, moon versus stars, apparent brightness. Correct, Andrew. And I mean, there's lots of other, you can also look at it as moon in terms of the brightness, but also the importance of the moon versus its children, who are the stars. right? The learned are the heirs of the prophets. That's a huge statement to make, right? That the learned scholars, the alim, the ulama, are the heirs of the prophets. Michelle, very, very welcome. Better late than never, yeah. Okay, the prophets have not bequeathed money, okay, dinar no dirham, but have only left sacred knowledge. So again, this huge emphasis on knowledge. I think I've made my point. I don't have to continue. Now, the following the Quranic evidence, okay, the Quranic evidence for following the scholars. This is within the Sharia, right? Ask those who know if you know not. It's not recall, it's know, right? By consensus of all the scholars, the ijma, this is the orthodoxy within Islam, right? This verse is an imperative for someone who does not know a ruling in sacred law, the evidence for it, to follow someone who does. And those who do are the alim, the ulama, the scholars. Virtually all scholars of fundamentals of Islamic law have made this verse their principal evidence that it is obligatory for the ordinary person to follow the scholar who is a mujtahid. And of course, the science is the ilm, the faqih, the ulama, and of course, this has a connotation of mysticism, mystics, back to the occult, right? Faqih, ulama, and the faqih possessing knowledge, 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 not grace, not faith, knowledge. Ulama, scholars, right? People of expertise, again, knowledge. So the scholars of the religious sciences, of course. So, and we have discussed in the past, I have discussed this, I'm not going to go over this one again, but the levels of knowledge in Islam, the lowest level, the lowest Muslims are in the ibara level. Then you've got the ishara, right? The more subtle level, subtle knowledge. This is your average scholar. Then your latifa and your haqa'iq of purely for the Sufis. And remember, this knowledge is not what you would call logos. This knowledge is internal, subjective, right? You have to be inside of a pre-rational or post-rational state, but not in the rational mind. The rational mind's a trap. You have to separate from reason so you can commune with Allah. And that's what they do these rituals for. All right? So, lataif, mysticism, lataif, latifa, which eventually links to the Laylat, and then you get to Lilith. Okay, so there's a connotation of Sophia, spin in circles, exactly, things like that. And the Hakika. Now, in mysticism, the profound reality to which only experience of union with God opens the way, with Allah in this case, right? The universal, rational, supposedly, principle. Now, this is al-Hakika al-Muhammadiyya. So this is the reality, the Muhammadan reality. The Muhammadan reality is that the world, the universe, the stars, the earth, are made from the fabric of Muhammad. Muhammad is the underlying fabric that made anything. Muhammad is the substrate, the source of everything that exists. Everything was made for, but also made with the essence of Muhammad. So understand, this is Islam. And the Ruh Muhammad is the spirit of Muhammad, which is also, today it's Gabriel, tomorrow it's Muhammad, the Holy Spirit. Okay? Secret philosophical doctrines. All right, so this is all about mysticism, direct communion with the ultimate reality, knowledge of God, ultimate reality attained through subjective experience. Vague speculation, belief without sound basis. Because they cannot describe it using the rational sense, because they reject the logos, it's all myth-making. Understand? It is all myth-making. All right, we've discussed this already, so I'll skip this, the science of letters. We've discussed the gematria, arithmomancy, onomatomancy, magical practices, and how the Quran has fire letters, air letters, water letters, earth letters, lunar letters, solar letters, and a whole bunch of other magical stuff going on. So we've discussed that. So let's go to Hermes Trismegistus, which is more interesting. All right, I've discussed this in previous shows, so please look those up for more on that. But Egypt, Hermes, and Islam. So Hermes, we have to look at Hermes. In fact, the name is spelled multiple different ways. That's why they say Allah knows best. Yeah, but Allah knows best actually goes, you have got to look at what's called the Aqidah, right? The creed of Islam. Just like in Christianity, you've got the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed. Islam also has an established creed called the Aqidah, right? They've got multiple of them, but if you look up the Aqidah, you'll find that Allah knows best is a formal part of Islamic doctrine that's in the Aqidah. So, Hermes. Hermes is a Greek god, okay? Except Hermes is like a triune god, if you want to think of it that way. It's a weird sort of a thing, all right? So, Hermes is also the Egyptian god Thoth. Actually, let me just try and bring up Thoth. Let's just see what I can do here. This is the Egyptian god Thoth, and Thoth happens to be integral to Islam. You'll guess why they want to claim this guy is integral to Islam, your guess is as good as mine. Yeah. So, okay. So haram, plural, ahram. Okay. And this is kind of similar to ashram if you look at the Vedic, right? And in the popular dialect of Egypt, ihram, the latter also used a word of doubtful origin, and it's pyramid. Haram, pyramid, because the Sufis, the highest scholars within Islam, claim that they have inherited the secret knowledge of the Egyptian mystery cults. So that's the connection to Egypt. All right. And they say here, it is legends from the sphere of Coptic Gnostic ideas that have become most strongly associated with these buildings. The two great pyramids there became the tombs of the prophets Hermes, and Agathodaimon. So Hermes, the prophet in Islam, right? Hermes, multiple names. Hermes Trismegistus, that strange god incarnate. They call Sufis heretics. Yeah, no, exactly. But the Sufis are the highest level scholars in Islam. And also, I'm busy working on this, but I'll be talking about that in the future, how this all links to certain Muslim sects you wouldn't seem to know are actually seemingly the most important, the most authoritative within Islam. Whoa, is Stephen Young, Hermes is a prophet of Islam? Yes, he is. Thank you for asking. Yes, he is. He is a spiritual or maybe a literal ancestor of Muhammad. He is the foundation of Islamic secret knowledge. He brought the hikmah, the knowledge, the wisdom of Islam. He brought that. So, yes, the Reliance of the Traveler is a really good source. The tablets given to Moses were said to be sapphire, which can appear green like emerald. Emerald tablets. Yeah, Hermes brought the emerald tablet, right? The emerald tablet. Wonder where this is going. So, Hermes, right? That's Hermes Trismegistus, that strange god incarnate. On the one hand, the Hellenistic or the Greek name of the Egyptian god Thoth, and on the other hand, the author of the philosophical, scientific, and magical works, Hermes Trismegistus, passed in both of these capacities into Islam. Islam, it is true, transformed the god into one of the heroes of olden times, who, according to his name, Trismegistus, al-Mutalat bil-Hikmah, you see, the guy who brought the Hikmah. This is from the Encyclopedia of Islam, okay? This is from the $40,000 Encyclopedia of Islam. And the like appears divided into three individuals. The first, Hermes, is identified with Enoch and Idris. You see, so he's mentioned in the Quran as Idris. Idris is like the second prophet in Islam. So he's foundational to Islam. He lived in Egypt before the flood and built the pyramids. Back to the pyramids. See, Haram, their name being connected with his. Haram, Hermes, pyramids, pyramid texts, the knowledge of Egypt, the secret mystery cults. You guys seeing how all this connected? Hermes before Muhammad. I thought Momo was the first prophet, Michelle. Hermes. So the claim is that Hermes Trismegistus originated roughly at the same time as Moses. So they've got a legend with this guy. But if you look through the history, and I'll talk about it in the future, I've got the notes. My notes are done. I just need to start making slides out of it. But I did the notes already, and I've been collecting other books. I'll probably do 2 or 3 shows on that. But he's at the same time. He's basically running contemporaneous with Moses, and he's like this competition with Moses. So why does Egypt forbid serious archaeological exploration? Well, just think, why does one of the Turks forbid proper examination of Haran? Because it's got so much connection to Islam as a pagan religion. So yeah. Ex-Muslims are proof of intelligent design. I agree. So he brought these books containing philosophical and ethical sayings of Hermes are much more numerous to the collections of Ibn al-Kifti and al-Shahrastani. Al-Kifti is an important Islamic scholar, but Shahrastani is also very, very important. I've spoken about him in the past, not really relevant now, but to the Sharia and the development of Islamic doctrines. Al-Shahrastani is one of the important scholars. So now you've got this Egyptian secret knowledge, which is it's pagan. It's not our God. It's not the God Yahweh. So this is now making its way into Islam, and they absorbed this through the Neoplatonists as well. Horse, welcome. So why won't the Saudis stop bombing? Well, exactly. They bombed the major Yemeni historical sites, like the one site that had the most information on the Yemeni pagan Babylonian religion, right, with the most artifacts. They bombed it to smithereens deliberately, because they don't want this information coming out. So a comparison with Greek anthologies is badly needed. In Al-Mubashir's account, Hermes shows strong monotheistic features similar to those described by al-Saraksi. All right, and then see Encyclopedia of Islam, Akhruf with Hermes Trismegistus, who was a mythical Egyptian sage who was reputed to live as a contemporary of Moses. The Hermetic corpus laid out procedures that allowed a magician to compel angels and other benign spirits to carry out his orders. Now, earlier, I showed you this stuff here. All of this, the Akhruf, remember they want to claim Akhruf is just a dialect or a word, but the longest, most detailed meaning of the Akhruf is magic, word magic, or technically letter magic. Islam does thieve from everyone, that is correct. So it is letter magic, which also allows what they call theurgy, I think it's, if I remember, thaumaturgy or theurgy or whatever it was, that allows them to control demons and spirits to do their bidding. So you understand this Islamic practice, Islamic magic, is Egyptian ritual magic based on this. So the corpus laid out procedures to allow a magician to compel angels and other benign spirits by knowing the name. So you have to know the name. Hermeticism is an ancient occult tradition encompassing alchemy, astrology, and theosophy. Okay, that's fascinating. What is theosophy? So if we go look up, okay, let's look up the Theosophy Society, and who are we going to come up with? Okay, the Theosophy Society. Actually, let's just look up Theosophy. And we're going to come up with this woman, Madame Blavatsky, one of the major occultists of the 19th and 20th centuries, or 19th century. So Islam claims to be the source, the root of Blavatsky and major occultism, which is, yeah. So understand, Islam is not what it pretends to be. There are some serious issues in Islam. Let me continue. Hermes is Idris, right? Now, I've got lots of sources. I will put together more detail on this, and you'll see the story of Hermes Trismegistus in Islam is a complete joke, and just the mythology, the history of Hermes is a complete joke. It's hysterically funny when you look at it. It's just made up. It's a complete made up story, but we'll look at that in the future. Hermes is Idris, Plato, Pythagoras, Thales, and even Archimedes. They have even been attributed to Aristotle 2 works. Right? Oh, sorry. These sciences were practiced by the greatest spirits of humanity, such as Hermes, who is Idris in the Quran, Pythagoras, Thales, and Archimedes. They've even been attributed to Aristotle 2 works, one on Akhruf. Huruf is just, I think, the plural of Akhruf, entitled blah, 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 okay? And the other on arithmomancy. So now we've got another form of magic. So another form of Islamic magic. So Stephen Young says, Muslims are sounding more and more pagan, because it originally stems from paganism. It extends from this occult paganism. Then you've got the influence from Yemen, and then you've got the influence from Ethiopia, where they adopt a lot of these Christian ideas, these Jewish Christian ideas, and it's just syncretic religion. It's made up of it's a soup of things. All right, Idris was an ancient prophet mentioned in the Quran, whom Muslims believe was the 3rd prophet after Seth. He's the 2nd prophet mentioned in the Quran. Islamic tradition has unanimously identified Idris with the biblical Enoch, although many Muslim scholars of the classical and medieval period, that's the earlier scholars, the later scholars have one story, but the earlier scholars have a completely different story. So the classical and medieval period scholars held that Idris and Hermes Trismegistus were the same person. Okay, so the 2nd prophet in the Quran and Hermes Trismegistus were the same person. Let's go back here. This guy and Idris. Now, how do we reconcile pagan Egyptian gods and Islam? Your guess is as good as mine. That's why they claim Islam invented algebra. Yeah, Islam invented magic, numerology, Patrick Island, correct. Yeah, does all this make sense so far? Does this seem rational, what I'm presenting? I mean, all my sources you guys can find, and yeah, if there's any questions about that, I can link you guys all to that. But this is all within the Islamic corpus. I've also got some other books. Let me see if I can find you a good reference. Stephen says, I heard a weird story that the Egyptian magicians from Exodus went up to heaven and defeated God's angels, but eventually lost to Metatron Enoch. Is that a Gnostic story? You know, it sounds familiar. It does sound familiar. I don't know it offhand, but it sounds kind of vaguely familiar. Okay, so let me just go here. I'm going to look up Hermes. Let me just can't see it from there. So, here's one folder. I was down. Sorry, there's a book that I'm trying to get for you guys. Well, this one, yeah, yeah, that's it. This one, you can look this up on my archive. This will really help you. There's a whole bunch of them. Just look for Hermes on my archive, okay? Go to my Google archive, check the descriptions. But this one is interesting. Kevin van Bladel, the Arabic Hermes, from pagan sage to prophet of science. So yeah, to Muslim prophet of science, we should say, right? And he brought the sacred knowledge, and this made its way into the occult. It made its way into the Freemasons, made its way into the what's the Italian family, the Medicis. It made its way into all of the secret societies of Europe, and it made its way into the Nazis, and oh, good grief, it's just been everywhere. Okay. So what have I missed? Ancient pagan gods will be assimilated. Yes, 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 XYZ. Yeah, so let me just go back here. Okay, that's done. Yeah, so anyway, so that is just a complete mess, that they are co-opting pagan gods. And that's Islam for you, pagan. Hermes and Thoth are synonymous. Yes, as is Mercury. The god Mercury is Hermes, is Thoth. Yeah, so the Roman god Mercury, Hermes in the Greek, and Thoth in the Egyptian. Yeah. So a general tendency was to be observed among practitioners of religious sciences to consider as certain knowledge only what was inherited from Muhammad. Now, Muhammad did not bring scientific knowledge. Muhammad brought sacred knowledge, the gnosis. Only this is true knowledge. Everything else is false, which is why Islam does not have rational science. It doesn't follow logos. It believes in magical science, right? So they speak here of the science for Ibn Taymiyyah, one of the greatest scholars. He is a Sheikh al-Islam, one of the top 30 scholars to ever live in Islam. Translation is futile. You will be demolated. Yes, yes. I see the memes are starting. That's pretty good. Yeah, think outside that box, okay? So the science par excellence is that which derives from the prophet. All the rest is useless or does not deserve to be called science. Islam does not respect our science. They don't respect our logos. We need rationality to do science. This is not what Islam believes in. So the jurists of the Mutazili tendency, okay, comments that numerous prophetic traditions on the study of science concern only religious knowledge. So they're not interested in rationality, they're interested in subjectivity. The ulama have long been seen as a permanent government behind these changing dynasties. Now you're back to a secret society. These guys are the original deep state. Since even Aristotle is believed to be a Gnostic, isn't Logos as well Gnostic science? Wasn't NASA established by 42 Nazis? I mean, you can build a conspiracy out of anything. Of course the Nazis were taken, because would you want the Nazis to keep those Nazis, those scientists in Germany and build the bomb and then bomb New York, right? So we all have our own truth, yeah, and that's oddly enough, that's something I believe that Martin Luther even promoted. What do they call it? Nominalism, that it's true for you, right? And yeah, there's nothing objective outside. There's no eternal qualities that are ascribed to multiple things, but it's purely your own internal experience, and that's a dangerous way of thinking. So hikmah. See, I've just messed up that slide. Let me just try and fix that slide quickly. Okay, that's odd. What have I done here? Okay, let me. Good grief! On a scale from 1 to 10, I'm being pretty stupid here. Let me just do this again. Okay, hikmah, wisdom, also science and philosophy. So what is the hikmah? This is from the Encyclopedia of Islam, Volume 3, Spiritual Alchemy. Hikmah, wisdom, also science and philosophy. Remember, philosophy is illegal for lay Muslims. Okay, if I go here, let me just go back to this. Let me get here. I'm going to go to the Reliance of the Traveler, right? And I'm going to search here for philosophy. Right, philosophy. So let's have a look at philosophy within Islam, right? This is from the Reliance of the Traveler, section A7.2. It's page 32 in the in the PDF. Unlawful knowledge includes sorcery, and philosophy is number 2, right before magic. So they somehow use philosophy, which also gives us logic. They include this as unlawful knowledge. So Muslims are expected to be stupid because philosophy is in the same category as sorcery and magic. That is just weird. So Stephen says, this seems to explain why the Islamic Golden Age died off and you didn't see a scientific revolution. Correct, because they invaded countries, took over people. These people inherited Arabic names. They were Christians or Jews that were practicing science, and the Muslims simply co-opted it. But no, Islam has never been scientific. So nominalism equals chaos. From the chaos came order, say the Masons, because they keep being brought up. Yeah, they're stupid. I mean, that's... Yeah. So Abduls have no standard, of course. So Islam has never been consistent in anything. Exactly. Consistency is important. And that's why I will be doing a detailed talk on logic, rationality, Aquinas, scholasticism. So, yeah, when you marry a cousin, it does affect your IQ. That is true. Okay, so let me just go back to the slide. So, yeah, understand philosophy in Islam is illegal. Right. So, let's continue. So, on the Arabic side, al-Jurjani gives the word hukm the primary meaning of to set the thing in its place, to find the right place where something belongs. The Quran calls it al-hikmah al-baligha, wisdom, which has attained its maturity. It uses hikmah many times because they said that wisdom matured over many years. There's like a whole story they got through that, but not important now. It uses hikmah many times in the current sense of wisdom, which implies knowledge of high spiritual truths. So the hikmah, the wisdom, is the gnosis. The book and the wisdom together often constitute a single gift. Wisdom was granted to David, to Jesus, to Muhammad, even to Luqman. We don't know who Luqman is. There's no parallel of him in the Bible. And is linked with the idea of purity, the pure knowledge, the gnosis. So Averroes was, so I think Irenaeus wrote, Aquinas wrote very critically of Avicenna or Averroes. And Al-Farabi, he's something I should talk about in the future. I have mentioned in the past, Al-Farabi introduced Neoplatonism and false Aristotelianism into Islam. And he was critical scholar within Islam. Now's not the time to talk about that, but Al-Farabi is someone who we should talk about in the future. He has a huge role to play in the development of Islam at a certain point in time. Yeah. Well, they call them heretics today, just like they disavow the Sufis, but the Sufis are at the top of the pyramid in Islam. The Tarifat understand it not only of every word that accords with the truth, right, which implies knowledge, but also of science and action, of the science of the licit and the illicit, what's legal and what's illegal. Remember, Islam is not a moral system that has right and wrong. It's a legal system. It has legal and illegal. It doesn't have morals, not right and wrong. It has legal and illegal, and there are loopholes in the law which allows the illegal to become legal. So it is able, through its little legal trickery, right, to make illegal things, immoral things, legal. So of the sciences, of the religious law, and also of the secrets that elude common knowledge. Okay, of the secrets that elude common knowledge, the ghaib. That is to say, the secrets of the divine essence. It is then al-hikmah al-muskat al-ha, the science about which one remains silent. Oh, this is why philosophy can't be discussed. The science about which we remain silent, the secret science. So let me just fix my slide and get this one back up. And there we go. Hikmah, wisdom, but also science and philosophy, the ancient usage of the word lent itself to this evolution, which was favored by the meaning of the Greek of the purely Arabic side. Okay, they give the word hukm. So this again is, so the science about this comes from the Encyclopedia of Islam. You can always look up hikmah, look up the volume dealing with H in the Encyclopedia of Islam. I'm just going to skip forward here because I messed up the slide. And in Ibn Sina's definition, wisdom is the passage of the soul of man to the perfection possible for him within the two bounds of science and action. So, if you look at the Soviets, look at communism, socialism, they believe in the socialist man, the perfected socialist man and woman. Look at the Nazis, they had the Übermensch, the perfected man. Islam has the perfected man as well, right? Islam has its own perfected man. Muhammad was perfected. And it's important for these scholars to become perfected like him. And for this, you need the hikmah. And the science is not science as we know it. This is occult science. This is alchemy, alchemy of the soul. So understand that this idea made its way, it's a Gnostic idea that's made its way into very toxic, very destructive Western ideologies. Hermeticism and Islam. So Abd al-Jabbar, very important scholar within Islam as well in the 11th century, I believe. They also called Hermes the ancient philosopher, the threefold Hermes, Hermes Trismegistus, right? Hermes al-Mut'alath, okay? And he has in mind here Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes of threefold wisdom. In Ibn Nadim, in Muslim tradition, Hermes Trismegistus, known in Greek religion as an incarnate god, the Greek version of the Egyptian god Thoth, and the author of philosophical and magical works, who became a prophetic magical character who had, not surprisingly, 3 incarnations. The first as the prophet Idris, or Achanuch, Enoch, right? And you have Hermes. On Hermes in Islam, see the dissertation by K. von Bladel, Yale University. And this is from Gabriel Said Reynolds, well-known scholar, a Muslim theologian in the sectarian milieu. So yeah, this again is further corroboration from top scholars that Hermes Trismegistus is very much a part of Islam. In Islam, Hermes Trismegistus is associated with the prophet Idris of surahs 19, 56 to 57. We can have a quick look at what is said there. Okay, from Quranics.com, and make mention in the scriptures of Idris. Lo, he was a saint, a prophet. Islam is telling us Hermes Trismegistus, the Egyptian god Thoth, was a saint, a prophet in Islam. I feel dirty after reading as a Catholic, but it's good to learn about. Yeah, I just bought the Divine Pymanid of Hermes Trismegistus. It seems like something that was written recently because it's been edited extensively multiple times over the centuries. Yeah, right? And then, of course, and we raised him to a high station. So this Egyptian pagan god, this Roman Greek god, is raised to a high station in Islam. I thought Islam rejects paganism, but it seems it embraces it and it really desperately wants to be part of this. Okay? And of course, it's also identified with Enoch. Okay, let's have a look at 2185. Let's have a quick look at what it says here. Al-Anbiya, the prophets, and mentioned Ishmael and Idris and Dul-Kifl, all were of the steadfast. Okay, so that means there were good men that were steadfast in the Islamic religion. So Islam owns this guy. They want him. And of course, Enoch of Genesis 5, 18 to 24. I don't know if that's important, if I should bring that up. Enoch begat Methuselah, and Enoch walked with God. Actually, let's have a brief look at this then. So, it's short. Jared lived 162 years and he begat Enoch. Enoch 800 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Jared, let's see, were 960 and he died. And Enoch lived 60 and 5 years and begat Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. All the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God and he was not. And he was not, for God took him. Okay, so disappears after 365 years. Islam is, yeah, it's on demand, it grabs everything. Maybe they assimilated Hermeticism the same way they assimilated Alexander the Great. Both are Alexandrian systems, yeah. So the whole Hermes Trismegistus story, if you look at the history, it changes and changes and changes. It's a complete joke. It's obviously fiction, but it's presented by these occult organizations as true. So, the star-worshipping sect, the Sabians of Haran, also believed that their doctrines descended from Hermes Trismegistus. Now, this is important. The Sabians from Haran is just across the border from Turkey, from Syria into Turkey. It's about 20 k's over the border. Haran is where originally Abraham stopped on the way to Canaan, right? So Abraham's family traveled south to Canaan, and they stopped and they stayed in Haran. There are 3 places, 3 towns in that region named after family, uncles and brothers, or uncles of Abraham. Right, so this is very unusual. Abraham is said within the Jewish texts to have been a Sabian or a Sabaean, right? So, but the Sabians, Muhammad is claimed to be a Sabi. Within the Hadiths, and I've shown this multiple times, Muhammad is said to be a Sabi, Sabis are moon worshippers that claim their doctrine comes from the Egyptian mystery schools. When the Muslims took over that area in the 8th century or late 7th century, they inherited this knowledge because there was a major university, an occult university there, and they claim they took all that knowledge, absorbed it into Islam by the Sufis, and then took it to Spain. So, yeah, anything goes as long as it's done in the name of Allah. Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, Islam is insane. So all superstitions in order to control people. Yeah, this is just nonsense, right? Let me see. So Muhammad is claimed to be a Sabi in the Hadiths in Da'if Bukhari, Volume 1, Book 7, Hadith 340. For the Muslims who are listening, this is a joke, because Muslims constantly come and tell me, ha ha ha, you don't know what you're saying, that's a Da'if Hadith, ha ha ha. Yeah, look buddy, it's a Sahih Hadith, that's called a joke. You are clearly ignorant, it happens a lot. At least 20 Arabic Hermetica extant. So in other words, the Muslims cannot claim they did not absorb this into their scholarship, into Islam. There's 20 Arabic Hermetica extant. Some were translated from Greek or Middle Persian. Some originally Arabic. Hermetic fragments are found in 2 works of Muslim alchemists, right? From the 800s, early 800s. They cited an early version of the Emerald Tablet in his Kitab Ustukus al-Us, and Ibn Umayl from the 900s quoted and commented upon Hermetic sayings throughout his work, among them a commentary on the Emerald Tablet. So these things were all very much involved with Arabic magic. Hermes Trismegistus is synonymous with magic and alchemy, the heir of a primeval knowledge, a preserver of hidden truth, the truth that must not be spoken of, and the transmitter of the art of sorcery and alchemy to mankind. The Stream Elements bot is acting up. You know what? I might need to kill the bot permanently. That's Daif. Yeah, Dano. Yeah, just tell the Muslims. Okay, so Big Mahmoud. I love UK Christians. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Joseph Smith appears to have stolen Muhammad's template of theology. He did, as far as I can tell, he did. Conitiendo al-Islam, I love Daif Bukhari. It's the best book. It's full of knowledge and wisdom, yeah. I wonder how many emerald tablets were burned by with money. Good question. Okay, so Hermes Trismegistus is synonymous with magic and alchemy, the heir of a primeval knowledge, preserver, hidden truth, the transmitter of the art of sorcery and alchemy to mankind. Alchemy comes from an Islamic word. It's an Islamic practice. Okay? The ancient alchemy was derived from the Arabic chemiya and may ultimately derive from the ancient Egyptian word chemi, meaning black, which I'm guessing here, does it mean black magic? Chemiya, alchemy, black magic. Marie-Louise von France describes in an introduction to Ibn Umayl's book of the explanation of the symbols, Kitab al-Rumuz, the contributions of Islamic alchemy as follows. In the 7th to 8th century, Islamic scholars were mainly concerned with translating ancient Hermetic Gnostic texts without changing them. So they had taken this information wholesale, was sacred to them, and they thought these are the secrets of the universe. We need to keep these without changing them. Gradually, they began confronting their content with the Islamic religion and began to think independently and experiment themselves in the realm of alchemy. The same happened when this knowledge made its way to the West. So they would inherit it, but it's already been altered by the Greeks. Look, it came from the Egyptians. They altered it a couple of times. Then it went to the Greeks, and then it moved somewhere. And every time it moved somewhere else, it got altered and edited and changed. So what they were getting was not the original already. It's already just something that's changed. It's broken telephone all the way through. So they thought independently and experimented themselves in the realm of alchemy. Thus, they added an emphasis on monotheistic outlook, Tawheed. So they imposed Islam on it. So alchemy is Islamic. Man, these streams are full of golden nuggets. Thank you. Yeah, well, yeah, golden nuggets. That's what I do. But yes, alchemy is Islamic. And more creating a synopsis of the diverse antique traditions, thus unifying their meaning. And the Islamic scholars arrived at the idea that the secret aim of alchemy was the achievement of one inner psychic experience, namely the God image. So in other words, this was to become the insan, al-kamal, right? And so this is what Muhammad had achieved. He became the insan, al-kamal, insane as a camel, right? That is the perfected man. That's what the Gnostics achieved. This is what the Übermensch in Nazism, this is the perfected Soviet man, all right? So the God image, the imago Dei, so man become God. Okay, and that's what they were doing. The mystical masters of Islam understood alchemy as a transformative process of the alchemist's psyche. So not turning lead into gold literally, but turning you into God. The fire which promoted this transformation was the love of Allah. So this was Muslim. This was Islamic. This was to do with Allah. So you've got dirty matter on the outside. You've got God on the inside. And you are transforming your lead into gold. It's interesting that the rise of Western alchemy, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, and esotericism coincide with the rise of Protestantism in Europe. And you wouldn't be wrong, I think. Yeah. I don't know why Islam is the only one with a multitude of beggars on the street in every country, especially Ghana. Really? That's interesting. Yeah. Lord, you keep showing all these different ideas as part of Islam. What's left for us? You're killing all the fun. I'm sorry, man. Yeah, just like Islam beat you to it, man. Islam beat you to it. Okay, Arabic Hermes. So Hermes, Hermas, Hermes. Okay, Encyclopedia of Islam, and also the Encyclopedia of the Quran. Let me just show you what I mean by that source. So there's a couple of sources. The one that I use is the Encyclopedia of Islam, which you can find on the Brill, but also there's the Brill Encyclopedia of the Quran. This one is 3,956 pages long. So yeah, this is very important. This is really, really important. This is a fantastic reference, a really fantastic reference. Just give me 1 second. Hey, Mal, I'm on a stream. Can I call you back in a few? Thanks, Mal. Cheers. That was Mal calling me, Islamic origins. Okay, yeah, so Hermes Trismegistus, that strange god incarnate, we've seen this, okay? He passed into Islam, and of course, he lived in Babylon, right? The second lived after the flood in Babylonia. Then this takes us to Yemen, right? The South Yemen. We're looking at now the Sabaeans, the moon worshippers of the Babylonian moon god called Shin, but also called Makkah, al-Makkah. And Makkah, you may have heard of a place called Makkah in Saudi Arabia that's very important to Islam. So Babylonia, Makkah, Islam, yeah. Make the connection yourself. So have a look at this book, will be something interesting. So, Hermes. It may be possible to discover the missing link between the name Idris and Enoch by means of the Qumran scrolls. Now, I'm not going to go into length. You can look in the book yourself to read because I have to cut out pieces so I don't sit here reading the whole book to you. Right, so look up the Van Bladel book so you can see the rest of the citation yourself. Right, Enoch of the apocalyptic literature brought the secrets of heavens to human beings. So it could well be that the people who wrote about Hermes were copying the very, very earliest Jewish Bible manuscripts. So they were creating a counter figure, an opposite, their own myth, to compete with that of the very, very earliest followers of Yahweh. Hermes means interpretation, or hermeneia. In the Damascus Covenant Scroll, the interpreter of the Torah is also identified with the star, the name used to refer to Mercury. So, which is very, very interesting, because there's a section within the Talmud and within the Talmudic texts of Moses interpreting, and then this very, very important task of the first to interpret that Muhammad does in the Sirah, which there's a parallel to this idea there. So they've got this idea of the interpreter. This is the interpreter of the truth. And the star, of course, well, that's the star of Aphrodite, and it links with the moon and so on. Although its full name in Hebrew is the sun star. In view of the etymological connection between Doresh and Idris, and the similarity of their roles and those of Hermes Trismegistus and the planet Mercury, it is possible that the figure of the interpreter of the Torah contains the solution to the origin of the name Idris. So the name Idris could well come from, apparently, Hermes Trismegistus, right? So there's a connection. According to this, I'm just cutting this out to the bare bones so I don't quote a lengthy passage. The apocalyptic literature of Enoch penetrated Islam in the era of the Prophet by means of the Manichaeans, and the Manichaeans are Gnostics. They're crazy Gnostics, money, right? And so why would they now be absorbing massively Gnostic texts into Islam as well? Manichaean texts, for that matter. So, right, fragments of this literature, which were discovered in the Qumran caves, are the basis of Mani's Book of Giants. So now you've got a heretical Gnostic sect that was stealing from the very oldest Jewish texts, right? Very oldest biblical texts. Some of this would be, I guess we'd call apocryphal. And this makes its way into Islam, which is crazy. That's from the Encyclopedia of the Quran, page 1104. Just look up Qumran or Book of Giants or whatever. Like, that should have been a capital G. So what have I missed? Why do they keep claiming the names of stars of Arabic names? I know, it's astrological as well. Basically, they were good at changing names, yes. John Scott says, I always find it fascinating how all these things tie in together. Babel, the gods of nations, all the way to Islam and modern-day Gnosticism. Yeah, it's all connected. It's weird how it actually all connects. It shocks me as well. How, yeah, it's surprising, but all of these threads connect. Basilgate, welcome. Welcome. Late developer, yeah, looking forward to chatting with you soon. So Stephen Young says, interesting that Enoch was preserved by Ethiopians and Muhammad was influenced by heresies from Ethiopia like Mary as divine. Yeah, look, they spent 15 years with the Ethiopians. Don't forget, in their very first hijrah from Mecca, they spent 14 or 15 years with the Ethiopians. The word Tawhid comes from the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, which refers to the unity, the complex unity of the Trinity, right? The unity of God, right? So the Tawhid, the Tewahedo, the unity. So Allah's a unity, Tawhid, not a singular, not a monad, but a unity. So they took that from the Ethiopians and other practices also from the Ethiopians. Hikmah, the main stock from which spring directly the usul al-ulum, the roots, or al-ulum al-asliya, the fundamental sciences such as the study of the world and logic. This is not logos, okay? This is their version of logic. So this is Brill, Hermes Trismegistus, and the origins of Gnosticism. Brill is like the oldest academic published in the world. I believe they're like dated the 1700s, 1600s. They're old, okay? This is Gilles Quispel, right? French scholar, very interesting paper. Samuel Insilou rightly observes in his seminal study Manichaeism, Valentinus and Mani have much in common. So Mani steals from Valentinus, one of the very early Gnostics we spoke of in the beginning of this presentation, early on. It is no less certain that the Hermetic Gnosis influenced Manichaean beginnings. Okay, so Mani was not just a Gnostic, he was influenced by Hermes and Hermetic Gnosis. Ephraim Sifris mentions Hermes among the primeval sages of Manichaeism. Okay, so Hermes is important in Manichaeism, which is crazy Gnostic nonsense. I mean, insane Gnostic nonsense, well known, and then it's also in Islam, the same source, the same ideas, and we know that. So people always talk about how Manichaeism makes its way into Islam and how you can see parallels between Muhammad and Manichaeism and Mani, but now they both are getting their information from the same source, which is Hermes Trismegistus. A unity of what? If there's only one singular, nonsense at its finest, or X. Yes, exactly. It's a unity, but of what? So understand, Islam makes no sense, because if it was, why do they say Tawhid instead of Wahid? They should say Wahid, one. So Basilgate says, interestingly, Enoch lives for 365 years in Genesis. Yes, I know. We just read that. We just read that piece. In Genesis, the Qumran community seems to have adopted a solar calendar. That is why the feasts and Sabbaths did not coincide with mainstream Judaism. That's interesting to learn. Okay, I did not know that. You gotta love the nonsense title, yeah. Unity of one. Yeah, so Islam is borrowing things it doesn't understand. It's taking things because it sounds good, but it doesn't understand them. A Middle Persian fragment, M788228, enumerates Hermes, the pastor, or Hermes, the poimen of men, among the apostles of true religion. So now this probably has a parallel, and I believe it does. I read a paper on it, on the Shepherd of Hermes, which is an old Christian text, which has certain, it's apocryphal, it has certain elements of what seemed like genuine, early, ancient, first century Christianity, as well as it veers off into nonsense somewhere near the end. Exactly, Tawhid means unity of several, at least two, correct. It's a complex unity, so thanks to stay in Christ. Appreciate that. Okay, Muhammad trying desperate to be a prophet and get people to worship Ham. I worship ham. I think ham is great, but you know what? There's only one thing better than ham, and that's bake ham. Bake ham is much, much better. Crispy bake ham. Okay, Mani was familiar with Hermetic law. He knew and loved the Gospel of Thomas. The Gospel, I don't know why they call it the Gospel. It's like the 114 sayings of Thomas. It's really like 114 sayings. Just like there's 114 surahs in the Quran. Thanks, guys. So 114 surahs in the Quran, but the odd thing is the word surah means degree, just like there are 30 Andrew, yeah, bake ham is how I inoculate. That's my vaccine, okay? Baycam is my vaccine. That's how that protects me from Islam. I suggest you use lots and lots of Baycam vaccinations yourself. Okay, daily Baycam vaccinations. Just send me Baycam. Okay, if you want to be nice to me, just send me Baycam. All right. So the fact is that Surah means degree, just like you have 33 degrees within Freemasonry. You have 114 degrees in the Quran. Medical advice you can trust. I'm here for you guys. So the conceptualization of Manichaeism is certainly of Hellenic origin, so Greek. So we're not getting the original Egyptian story. We're getting it filtered through and edited at least a couple of times by the Greeks in different periods. And it owes not a little to Plato and Numenius, so it's Neoplatonic as well. 6 degrees of Kevin, Baycam, yes, yes. But these ideas had to pass through Hermetism with its rites and rituals. Now, some scholars don't like the word Hermetism. Okay, Hermeticism is apparently a better word for whatever reasons, but yeah, some scholars object to this form of the word. All right, so these ideas had to pass through Hermetism with its rites and rituals, like the kiss of peace, the baptism with the Spirit, and a holy meal. Now, understand these are Christian practices, or these Christian practices probably are predated within certain Jewish sects. So it has borrowed some of these ideas and absorbed it, and now they seem very Christian in some ways. Moreover, this conceptualization was integrated by esoteric Judaism of Alexandria. And now, there's an interesting, let me bring this up here. Well, let me just bring this up here. Heresium Ferax. Let me just find this. Here we go. Yeah, this is something I would recommend you guys take the moment to read if you can. Arabia Heresium Ferax. Arabia, the bearer of heresies. Schismatic Christianity's potential influence on Muhammad and the Quran. This is all about Gnostic forms of Christianity. Look, it's not even Christianity, it's heresy. But this is something useful because there were 3 major centers. Okay, there were 3 major centers of heresy within the ancient world where heresy was entrenched. One of those is Alexandria. That library of Alexandria didn't necessarily have books on the Bible because, no, it had all this Gnostic nonsense. Okay, those were books that was all nonsense. Right, at Alexandria. That was one of the major centers of heresy. If you look in history, you'll find a lot of the major heretics came out of Alexandria. The other was Najran in southern Arabia. Najran on the border near Yemen. The third place was Haran in Turkey, southern Turkey, just across the border from Syria, that I mentioned earlier. So with its major occult temple. So those 3 places are major sources of heresy. And especially in Najran, there were huge fights with and I mean ideological fights, doctrinal fights with Christians to try to establish what was true Christianity, because these people had corrupted Christianity and people were very, very confused, right? So the esoteric Judaism of Alexandria and so became Gnosticism before it reached Mani. So you've got Hermeticism, which morphs into Gnosticism, which is an offshoot from Hermeticism, which contains some elements but also diverges in some ways. So, and then you've got Mani coming into the mix, and then Islam takes all this stuff in. So Islam borrows names like Elijah, John, and Jesus, which literally includes the name Yahweh, but then say Yahweh is a pagan god. I know it's stupid. I mean, you got to be a special kind of stupid. And then Iberia, actually, so Jimmy Berman, Iberia, Spain was called Hispania for a long time. Iberia is not really a thing. If you look at the history, it's actually, to call it Hispania is very accurate. Okay, Iberia just confuses the issue. It is Spain. It tries to, I think it's Muslims trying to co-opt and own that idea of Spain as theirs. Secret sandwich knowledge. Bacon sandwich, and we're talking, Dan. So, okay. Deuteroscopy, I keep getting it wrong. Deuteroscopy 29:29. The secret things belong unto the Lord our God. So we are not, at least the way I interpret this, okay? This is the King James Version. This is a photocopy from the same one that St. Paul himself used. Okay, it's not signed, sadly, but I made a photocopy of that page. Right. So the secret things belong unto the Lord our God. That was a joke for any PhDs who might be listening who can't tell the difference between sarcasm and fact. The secret things belong unto the Lord our God. So the way I read this, I mean, look, obviously I haven't looked at a commentary, so I'm just, is that we are not meant to try to discern the future. The occult is not our business. So we are to restrict ourselves to the land of the rational, right? And within things of spirit, we need to be judicious and careful, not to dabble into the occult. That's kind of how I'm reading this, right? But the secret things belong to God, not us. But those things which are revealed belong unto us. And what is revealed to us is what we call revelation. That's Christian faith, right? So what is revealed belongs to us and our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. So we are not to delve into the occult. What happened with Hispania, Spain? No, it's just that Iberia is not really a suitable title. I mean, it's a well-known term, but Hispania would be a correct way to address it, not Iberia. It comes from the Muslim Golden Age, exactly. They're trying to co-opt Spain to try to make it Muslim rather than to accept it as its Western Christian identity. Let's see, St. Augustine gave Manichaeans the smackdown. He did. We need to do a little bit of reading on, I need to do Irenaeus and his refutation of heresies, which is the short title, the modern shorthand title. It's not the full title. Because that'll be very useful for me in the future. I need to start reading St. Irenaeus. I haven't really read it. I've just quoted things as I needed them. So what do we call a group of 1.2b liars? What does that mean? Okay, let's continue. So, caution, questionable sources ahead. So let me see how many pages we have to go. Yeah. We're nearly done. I have 7 pages to go. Right, so how is this so far? You guys learning something useful? Something interesting? What have you taken from this? I'm curious to know, what have you learned from this so far? I mean, have I made my case that Islam is thoroughly Gnostic? Islam is thoroughly Hermetic. It is thoroughly occult. And this just tells us, if we dig, we're going to find more. And if we look, we're going to start finding some serious occult magic and Islam's influence behind groups that practice serious occult magic. I mean, would you agree? Do I make a coherent case? Arnold, welcome. Okay. King James rode in the pyramid with Pontius the Pilate. He was the Pilate. To give the KJV to King David so he could learn about Muhammad in the Old Testament. Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, like I said, it's sola scriptura is in the Bible, in Isaiah 42, right next to Muhammad. Okay, let me see. Too Many Marys was out of hand with the anti-Catholicism. Yes, she was, wasn't she? A house is going to fall on that woman one day. Just make sure you're not sitting close to her when that happens. This is the Al-Haqiqa Al-Muhammadi was absolutely crazy, Kush. Yeah, this stuff is weird. I mean, Islam is insane. And this is mainstream Orthodox Islam. It's you can look it up anytime you like. I mean, you should look up YouTube talks on this. It's insane what these scholars talk about. It's not that they're hiding it. Learning a lot. Thanks so much for your research. Thanks, Arnold. You know, someone told me a few days ago, and I did ask for more information so they could tell me more, but they said that apparently my information, and I mean, look, Mal as well, and I got to credit him, apparently my information is being noticed by academics. So someone told me. I have no corroboration or proof of this. Said my information is noticed by academics, and it's causing them to rethink and re-look at their data. Now, is this true? Can anyone confirm this? So I'd love to know. Sister in Christ says, thank you, Lord. This information really leaves no space in doubting the existence of our living God. Yeah, we have a better way, and we need to show people this is Islam, and we have a better way. James Alexander says, I don't know if you caught it, but she even claimed that the church was to blame for Islam form because the church didn't translate the Bible. I was working with a friend of mine today. He's out in the UK. He knows who he is. We were talking about this today. He's been doing some research work. That story about Bible translation, let's just say the standard narrative is not true. Once you look, you'll start to find some fascinating information. And let's just say we will do a talk on that. It's just I've got so many talks I need to get through. But this is something we need to talk about, because a lot of the discussions are about, a lot of the claims against the Catholic Church are just false, distorted, misrepresented. Now look, excuse my French here, but there are a bunch of asshole Catholics I've come across, okay? But I've come across a lot more a-hole Protestants. And I'm a Protestant saying this, because there's some people that really hack me off. And there are issues. I mean, we're people. We make mistakes. We say the wrong thing. We do the wrong thing. We are misguided. We've been mistaught. We've been misled. Fine. But one thing I like about Catholicism is the consistency. Whereas you go to the Protestant sects, and man, they cannot make up their mind. Like I showed you in the beginning, with that history. And one day I'm going to cover that, and it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing to look at. Like these guys are, because one, if they are correct, okay, if these scholars are correct about the roots of Protestantism, if their lineage, the way that they trace it back to Jesus and the apostles, if it is correct, then it comes straight out of Gnostic heresy. Then Protestantism is 100% built on the filthiest, nastiest heresy, if they are correct. And if they are not correct, then they are just lying and making up stories. Either way, it's a fail. It's a massive fail. It's embarrassing. Right. So Andrew says there are a-holes in every church, and that is true. There's one guy that really hacks me off, a guy called E. Muhammad Jones. You may know him. That guy really gets up my nose. Kufa had Jewish and Nasara schools, so as far as I know, could be obtaining writings from them. Yes, correct. You have sources to back up your claims, Lord. He deserves to be noticed. Thank you. What was happening at Complutensia? Tyndale short-circuited the process to rush at his red-top tabloid New Testament. Yeah, well, I was doing a lot of work on Wycliffe today, and yeah, there's some serious issues there. Because look, I mean, I think I've definitively proven that there was a deliberate, targeted effort to change, and it could be well through the French, because thanks to Yahweh for that. Yeshua is Yahweh. It could well be that somehow through the French they changed Jacob to James for a very particular reason, okay, very targeted reason. But we've established one change in the Bible made by Wycliffe that has become canon now, right? It's a fait accompli, it's done. But this implies there are other changes that were made that we now need to go and find, like words that have been changed, sentences that have been altered. So I don't want to get into Bible conspiracy theory, the Bible's been changed, but Protestants wrote those Bibles and according to an agenda. So this is something that I'm curious about. Protestant believer. My dad started the biggest Catholic church in my area. Cool. Luther compromised with the Mohammedans. What a tool. Yep. Hillslide, can you make more videos on French Revolution, please and thank you? I did a whole bunch of stuff on the French Revolution, man. Yeah, it's just that it's a lot of work to do. I've got so many things I want to do. I need to start doing maybe streams twice a week now because I have so much material. I need to get through it by streaming more often. What was happening? So, okay, let me finish this. Let me finish this. Questionable sources. When I say questionable sources, I don't mean these sources are just blatantly false, okay? We just need to take them with a pinch of salt. We need to be careful, okay? Some of the stuff will be good. Some of it's just, I think, to me at least, speculation. So just be cautious. So from here, we're heading to sources that are to be taken with caution before drawing conclusions. It is not that 100% of the information is false, but it is partial or mixed or requires disentangling. So discernment advised, okay? Have you spoke about socialism in Spain? I mean, the Marxists went nuts. I mean, yeah, of course. This needs deep, and of course the Marxists get called conservatives, like, huh? This needs deeper, rigorous investigation to untangle the false details from discernible facts. However, this also corroborates the Islamic sources. So, again, I just got to be cautious with this, okay? Colossians 2:4-10. I'm telling you this so that no one may deceive you by fine-sounding arguments. See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy. So look, you've got my sources, you've got my books, you can search for all this stuff. I mean, I answer chats, and I'll give you the references, you have it, so that check, okay? One of the core tenets of Islam, no, Islam is Gnostic, true blessing. Islam is Gnostic. It is a Gnostic religion. It claims to be a Gnostic religion. Where do I find loads? I haven't made any specific, I've made very few, 1 or 2 specific Luther videos, but I've been talking about Luther in reference to a bunch of other things. Luther, there's a lot, just like the Muslim stuff, it's the nasty stuff's in Arabic and not translated. As far as I can tell, and don't ask me to prove this right now, but from listening to German scholars, listening to talks by scholars, apparently there's some nasty stuff out there about Luther that's not translated into English. And it's behind paywalls or academia. It's nearly impossible. Luther is slow going. There are so many landmines, right? It's really slow going. It's like I've really got to look for tripwires, and there's a lot of bad info out there, and it's very slow going. That's what's taken me so long to disentangle Luther. So I will do stuff. I have stuff that's looking pretty solid, but yeah, man, they've made it really hard to get to Luther, and to me it seems deliberate. Okay, so some of this comes from initiates of various secret societies with their own agendas. So understand that. Okay, we need deeper, rigorous investigation to untangle the false details from the discernible facts. However, we still get corroboration of Islamic sources. unthinking conspiracy theorists would likely draw from sources of this type, okay, and reach erroneous conclusions. So be careful of this information. Islamic occultism and Hermeticism, Gnosticism must move towards genuine study of the subject from good academic and historical sources. There's a couple of sources online, YouTube channels, big channels that put out a lot of Gnostic stuff that are talking absolute poop. Okay, I've watched a bunch of stuff, and honestly, it's poop. PhD for piled high and deep, or poop high and deep, whatever. But yeah, there's a couple of guys out there putting out, and it's like, what are you talking about? Since credible sources, including ancient, authoritative Islamic scholarship, does exist. Zwingli and Calvin. Zwingli is, man, I've read Zwingli. Holy moly, the guy, talk about circular logic. Talk about an idiot. I was amazed how badly he writes. Okay, so anyway, enough. Let me finish this. I want to finish this today because I want to do other things tomorrow. Ismaili.net, Haqqaiq, the esoteric truth. So Ismaili Muslims, right? The religious revolution of man was considered to have taken place in 7 years under 7 messenger prophets. The first 6 of whom were Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. Each of these messengers revealed a religious law in esoteric form. So these guys are very much into the occult. You saw that biblical verse that says, look, the secret knowledge is not for us. Okay, whereas that's for God, not for us. We are to stay within the bounds of the revealed law. Whereas these guys are all about the occult and going astray, right? And this esoteric form was readily interpreted even by the uninitiated. This is the Zahir, or the external aspect. We've mentioned the 4 layers within Islam. The 2 divisions, the 4 layers, the lowest layer being the Zahir, the external, right? But as you go up the pyramid, right, then you have the batin, the internal, the secret. But each of these messages also contained an inner esoteric truth which required interpretation by the small number of initiates capable of receiving them. This is the batin, or esoteric truth. So these guys are claiming that they have secret knowledge. The esoteric truths themselves, Haqqaiq, were explained by a successor of each of the messenger prophets, known as the Wasi, or the legates, or by the Sami, the silent ones. Remember, knowledge of which you remain silent, whose task was to explain the batin of the scriptures and the law, so the secret Bible. The legate was in turn, or the secret Quran, was in turn followed by a series of 7 imams, the 7th of whom became the next messenger prophet in the series. The last era would be marked by the Mahdi, who would make the inner doctrine public and inaugurate an era of pure spiritual knowledge, where you would read the Bible and the Holy Spirit would convict you, and you would feel the Holy Spirit guide you, and the Holy Spirit would talk to you, that voice in your head, yeah, pure spiritual knowledge. That is also the same claim, the same Gnostic claim made by Joachim of Fiore in the 10th century that eventually created massive doctrinal shockwaves throughout Europe, massively influenced a lot of occult societies. All right, Ismaili theology was thus revelationary in character. The Haqqaiq transcended human reason and ultimately derived from Gnostic doctrines. Considering the principles of spiritual and physical worlds in Neoplatonic terms, the Gnostics held that the physical world had been created by an inferior deity, the Yahweh of the Old Testament, who was allowed a certain lassitude until God decided to send his son to inhabit the body of Jesus. That's not Christian theology, by the way, right? And free the world from false teachings. Certain Gnostic notions passed into Islam when Muhammad adopted the Gnostic idea that the body which was crucified was only a phantom which the Jews and Romans could not harm. This is from a book called Edward Berman, The Assassins, Holy Killers of Islam. This is really interesting. His history is very interesting. Okay, so let me just go back, find this link. Okay, so The Assassins, Origins of the Nizari Ismailis. So this is actually really, really fascinating stuff. Okay, let's move on. The proselyte is taught that a prophet is known as such, not by miracles, but by his ability to construct and impose a system that is at once political, social, religious, and philosophical. So again, the Ismailis, they speak of a political prophet. The prophet that's coming must do politics. Stephen Young, I'm a Catholic, but I'm interested in the Eastern Orthodox nous. Do you think that's related to nous at all? Of course it is. But look, no offense to people in the Eastern Orthodox, but from my understanding, my reading of things, there's an element of Sufism, Islamic Sufism, an element of the Adab al-Jadal, the Islamic method of argumentation, of disputation, which is also within Protestantism. And I think there's an element of Gnosticism within the Eastern Orthodox that not for me, no thanks. So yeah, it doesn't mean that people who follow Eastern Orthodoxy automatically become Gnostics, but it's there. It's definitely there. And there are practices that, no, that's not Christian, not to me. So it's made an impact, it's burrowed in there, and it's a problem. So, okay, from the Ismailis, the Crusaders borrowed the conception which led to the formation of all the secret societies, religious and secular, of Europe. The institutions of Templars and Hospitallers, the Society of Jesus, founded by Ignatius Loyola, composed by a body of men whose devotion to their cause can hardly be surpassed in our time, and the ferocious Dominicans, the milder Franciscans, may all be traced either to Cairo or to Alamut. I'm not saying I believe every word of this, okay? Just bear in mind what I said earlier. Caution, because some of this will be outright lies, some of it's going to be confusion, some of it's going to be deliberate. Have you had a session about that? No, I have not, Sister in Christ. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I mean, I did some basic looking, I looked at some sources, went through some stuff. I spent maybe like half an hour to an hour on it. And from what I'm seeing, I'm like, yeah, there's things here that just don't look right. Didn't look right to me. So, Adab al-Jadal is really about, Adab al-Jadal, it is, let me just go to that. Brill Encyclopedia. No, not this one. Let me go here. That one. Here we go. Adab al-Jadal. In theology and law, the method of debating in which we discussed questions that were controversial. It was not a matter of finding truth, but of convincing the opponent. So it's rhetoric based on sophistry, or sophistry based on rhetoric. Not designed to find truth. This is the complete opposite of Aquinas dialectic, the Aquinas scholasticism, right? Unfortunately, there's a parallel to Adab al-Jadal in Islam to the same scholasticism in Protestantism, which is again not a parallel to that of the Catholic scholasticism. The Protestant application of this seems to parallel the Muslim application, designed to dispute, to basically talk poop and win arguments, not to find truth. So, yeah. Okay, the Knights Templar, with their system of Grand Masters, Grand Priors, and religious devotees and their degrees of initiation, bear the strongest analogy to the Eastern Ismailis. Now you've got another guy saying, hold on, the Templars definitely turned to Sufi Islam. Note the efforts are political. These are political activists. So they are making political change. These people are active in the world. They're not just separating church and state. They want to change your life. They want to change your government. They want to take it over. And the guy writing this is a man called Saeed Ahmed Ali. You can look him up on Wiki or whatever. You'll find the guy says a bunch of stuff. This is just one of his recognitions. The guy's a big name. Order of the Star of India, Indian jurist, prominent political leader, author of a number of influential books on Muslim history and the modern development of Islam, established the London Muslim League in 1908 and a bunch of other things. This guy was a heavy hitter. So if he says this here, I mean, if this is true, then yeah, Muslims have infiltrated a lot of places and taken them over. Sufis, Masons, Jihad. In Sufi doctrine, certain lineages, tariqas, chains of brotherhoods, construe Islam, Iman, faith, and Ihsan, right, as 3 points of psychic and spiritual evolution. The Muslim, the adherent who exercises Islam, becomes oriented to Sharia, the law. While literally it means road, it ordinarily translates as law. The Mu'min, and we've discussed in monotheism, Mu'minin, right, one who exercises Iman embarks on tariqah, the mystical chain of spiritual enlightenment, right? So Iman, faith, and Ihsan is a very Gnostic related term. If you look in the Reliance of the Traveler, look up Ihsan. It's a practice really for the senior scholars, the Sufis, which is very Gnostic as well. Yeah, so guys, if you do like this, like, share, please subscribe, let your friends know. All right, so the Muhsin who exercises Ihsan acts from a state of Hakika, this ultimate spiritual reality where you're connected with Muhammad, where there is only contemplation with the divine, Muhammad. The Arabic word for mason is al-banna, or builder. The fundamental word for the Royal Arch School of Masonry is jabulon, composed usually of the Hebrew letters aleph, bet, and lam. Now notice within Islam you've got those weird letters in the Quran, alif, lim, mam. Similar, ABL. According to the Reverend Canon Richard Tiedemann, in an address to the Supreme Grand Chapter of England on 30 November 85, the word is a compound of 3 Hebrew terms, Il-Jah, I am, which indicates eternal existence, Aloy Be'el, on high in heaven, and Eon, which is the eons, the Gnostic eons, strength, pronouncing 3 aspects or qualities of deity, namely eternal existence, transcendence, and omnipotence, and equating to the true and living God. So now we're going from Masonry to what the hell's going on here? Okay, so this is all, so Masonry to Christians to Islam all being one religion. The letters A, B, and L represent the Sufi watchword al-Banna. To the Sufi builders, the word intimates also Hussein al-Banna is the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, a Freemason, a Sufi, and the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, the world's largest terrorist organization, and also, well, it's a terror organization, and it's the world's largest secret society. To the Sufi builders, the word intimates initiation, and the three letters symbolize key meditation postures. And these meditation postures, look up the practice within Eastern Orthodoxy, hesychasm, Hesychasm, and you'll start to find connections here. This is not good. Alif is the kneeling posture. The second letter, Ba, is symbolic of prostration and concentration. The third letter, El, Lam, in Arabic, is shaped like a rope. To the builder, Lam means the rope which binds all in mediation. The builder is the mason. The letters Alif, Ba, and Lam, according to the mystic Abjad table, when added together, produce the sum of 33. Ah! What's got 33 that's important in a certain secret occult group? Is the law meditation? I think mediation. I'm not sure if it's meditation. I'm not sure that it could be a typo from my part. Sometimes the texts that I'm working off are very old and badly scanned. Some of them are, so it could be. I think it's mediation. I think it is that, but I could be wrong. The one that keeps coming up, the Freemasons, 33, Alif, Ba, Lam. See? So some tafsirs describe these letters in the Quran as animals, like as a whale. Very stupid, yeah. So Hassan al-Banna belongs to the Ikhwan. He founded the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, the world's largest secret society. All right. So Ahram Online, in an interview, this is an Egyptian newspaper. It's legit Egyptian newspaper. In an interview with this channel and blah, 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 noted the story of Brotherhood leaders embezzling donations is hardly new. Muslim Brotherhood leaders' theft. Beginning with Hassan al-Banna, who in 1928, the year the Muslim Brotherhood was founded, managed to obtain a large donation from the Suez Canal Company, headquartered in Ismailia. Okay, now we've got the Ismailis again. These Ismailis come up a lot when you start looking at Islamic occultism, right? And the Suez Canal Company, we'll look at that. In 1948, the brothers were particularly busy exploiting the war in Palestine to collect money for jihad. Okay, secret society involved in warfare. The deputy resigned after he discovered al-Banna had embezzled most of the funds, and The Secret of the Temple, Part 2, published by the General Egyptian Book Organization, also details the influence of the Mesos on al-Banna's thinking. He means the Masons, that's a typo. So the Freemasons influenced his thinking. Louis Antoine, who was the Grand Master of Masonic Lodge in France, was the director of the Suez Canal Company that funded the Muslim Brotherhood. So this comes back to an Islamic connection to the Masons, again, funded by the Masons. It made a donation to al-Banna, and al-Banna adopted elements of Masonic structural organization, including the requirement members swear an oath to the organization and its leader. Egyptian newspaper. Another Egyptian newspaper. Senior national security official claims the Muslim Brotherhood is a Masonic group. A national security official who took part in the investigation of former President Mahmoud Morsi's espionage case claimed that the Muslim Brotherhood is a Masonic group that aims to bring a new religion into Egypt. State-owned Al-Ahram reported. In his testimony on Monday, Adel Azab, head of the National Security's Extremist Activity Investigations Department, supported his allegations by saying that Hassan al-Banna is not the group founder's real name. No one in al-Banna's family has that surname because it's a nickname, al-Banna the builder, the mason. Right? And that he added that Banna's father is a Moroccan Jew who relocated to Egypt. Whether that's true, that's questionable, but that is typical practice in the Middle East. If someone's bad, he's a Jew. It's that simple. I wouldn't believe that. I would disregard that. But Morsi, along with 10 other members of the Muslim Brotherhood, is facing charges of leaking sensitive intelligence reports and military information to Qatari authorities. Yes, so they're not necessarily squeaky clean either. Ikhwanis.com, the hidden face of the Muslim Brotherhood. Sheikh Rabi, the destructive Freemasonic principles and protocols of Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Brotherhood of Muslims, the Muslim Brotherhood. And they say here, Sayyid Qutb, destructive revolutions against authority in the name of social justice, and Hassan al-Banna, they took ideas and methods implemented from Freemasons in the 19th century to topple the monarchies and governments of Christian Europe. So they're claiming here that the Freemasons were attempting to topple Christian governments in Europe, to destroy the Catholic Church, to destroy the Church. And these Muslim Freemasons are taking these ideas to take over the Middle East. In this article, we present numerous statements from scholars of the Sunnah of our time, blah, 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 about the alleged golden principle of Hasan al-Banna and al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin, which is in reality just a rendition of a Freemasonic principle and slogan of brotherhood, oneness, and unity, irrespective of creed. That is known as Christian ecumenicism. A brotherhood, a unity, we're all brothers in Christ. It's a unity. Our creeds don't matter, even if we believe things that are utterly contradictory, even if we as Protestants have in our creed, as part of the dogma of our church for the last 500 years, that the Pope is satanic, the Pope is the Antichrist, and Catholics are following the satanic Antichrist Pope. But we're one in Christ. Unity. Nonsense. Nonsense. Doesn't work. So, yeah. So maybe we want to look at ecumenicism and think maybe it comes from a source we don't want to listen to. And in part 2, this article is about the Machiavellian and Masonic tactics, because when you start looking at Machiavelli, you might see an Islamic connection as well. You never know. So wolves always trying to destroy the Catholic Church. Have I missed any good comments? Confucius said, word spoken by the prophet from desert does not hold water. Lekker om jou weer te sien, my broer. pt4 apologetics. Goed om jou te sien, bra. We gaan op by die huis. Waar is jy? So, yeah. Let me see, have I missed anything? Okay, nearly done, nearly done. Has this been useful? Again, like I said, these sources, be careful. The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, Gary Wayne. So this is a book, How Secret Societies and the Descendants of Giants Plan to Enslave Humankind. Okay, maybe be careful. But there is some truth here. So while I wouldn't say I believe all this, there's some truth here. Right? Muslim philosophy is directly associated with Hermes, who is renowned in mystical Islamic tradition as Idris, Enoch. Idris of the Quran was recorded as a monotheist prophet with scripture. Oh, wait, so he brought scripture into Islam. He was a monotheist, but he was the Egyptian god, pagan god. Philosophy, the love of wisdom, derives from Greek phileo, to love, and from sophia, wisdom, and endeavors to develop a consistent worldview and way of life based on a peculiar zeal in the arts, sciences, or any branch of knowledge, the 7 sacred sciences. Philosophy is concluded to be superior to the particular sciences, so wisdom, philosophy, thinking, imagination, is greater than the specific, concrete sciences. It is their arbiter dedicated to harmonizing and uniting the sciences. So in other words, the sciences must be subservient to the overarching ideology. And this is very much like we look at when people talk about Luther was a great thinker, great rational. No, Luther called reason a whore. Remember, in his last speech, at least in Wittenberg, right, or at Eisleben, in his very last speech in Wittenberg, in 10 pages, he calls reason a whore, right? He makes 33 references in 10 pages. He calls reason a whore, the enemy of God. Reason must be trampled. Reason is the devil's bride. Reason must be, you have to throw poop in her face. Reason is idolatry. Reason is sin. Reason is disgusting. 33 times. Okay, so I'm not sure how, but I've shown you guys that. I'm not sure how reasonable and rational Luther was. If reason was sin, if reason was evil, if reason was the devil's whore, devil's bride, a prostitute. Okay? So, there are about 4,000 religions practiced in the world today. There may be some similarities on the periphery, but no central issues. They are fundamentally different. Correct. They cannot be, there's no ecumenicism. I'm often labeled a Satanist for practicing Catholicism. It no longer bothers me. Yeah, I know, there's a lot of that going around. So this ecumenicism reminds me of the Abu Dhabi Abrahamic family house crap. Yep. So Muslim philosophy and Hermeticism descend from Enoch the evil. Ergo, Arabic philosophy is not Islamic monotheism. Fascinating. So Muslim philosophy is polytheism or mysticism, which overran the Islamic world through the Sufis, the Ishmaelites, and that's, when he means here, is the Ismailis. We just mentioned the Ismailis earlier. And of course, within the Ismailis, I believe you have the Aga Khan. Look that up, right? And other Middle Eastern cults. The Sufi religion, according to Booth, relies heavily on Hinduism for its teachings. I have looked at the connection between Hinduism and Islam, and I agree. There is a clear connection. For its teaching on chakras, and that's also in Eastern Orthodoxy, and is a cosmology of monotheism, at least within certain sect of Eastern Orthodoxy. Philosophy, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Neoplatonism, Gnosticism, and of course Chinese science. The apostate splinter sect of John the Baptist followers, the Mandeans or the Sabians, and Muhammad was a Sabi, don't forget, heavily influenced Sufi mysticism. The Sufis heavily influenced the Gnostic Templars. Sabianism is the sun and star worshipping religion of Enoch, the evil. Fascinating stuff. I mean, all these sources. Now, again, I'd be careful with these sources, but they are saying things that are these partially true. Islam then already is sympathetic to mysticism and conversely would be sympathetic to both Christianity and Judaism if not for mystical influences imposed upon Muslims by mystical Islamic fascists and Islamic institutions, even though this may not be obvious from Islamic fanaticism that shadows the world today. Chakras is not in Eastern. Look up hesychasm. So, no, that is very much. They may not say it that way, it might not be phrased it, but that idea has made its way into Eastern Orthodoxy. And that's. So, Gnonsense, Yazidism, and Din Array. So, in the last couple of slides. Yazidism or Yazidism officially began somewhere in the 12th century within the Kurdish mountains, which border northern Iran, southern Turkey, and parts of Syria. I've been up there a few times. Most historians report an ancient version of the religion, which began much earlier, possibly 7,000 years ago. The name Yazidi might come from Yazd, Iran, or Yazad, Yazata, which means God in Kurdish. So, some believe the name comes from a caliph named Yazid ibn Muawiyah, who killed the Prophet Muhammad's grandson and then retreated within the Kurdish mountains. The religion began to defy Islam by drinking alcohol and not facing Mecca in prayer. The Yazidis now live in tribal communities and face persecution within the Middle East. The Yazidis claim to incorporate parts of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Iksen Joburg. Okay, but are closely linked to Zoroastrianism, which is, of course, also accepted within Islam. Zoroaster is accepted as an Islamic prophet. Zoroaster preached two mentalities under one God, Ahura Mazda. The Magi, three wise men from the Bible, were believed to be Zoroastrians. This religion comes from the Ismaili branch of Islam. Again, the Ismailis. So we've just spoken about the Ismailis and the Gnostics and the So yeah, Yazidis' roots are Zoroastrian, but they have added their own spin to the religion. Sheikh Abi Musafir, was the founder of the modern-day version of Yazidism. They have two holy books, the Black Book and Revelation. Some believe Revelation is a forgery, authored by Westerners with the intention of sugarcoating the odd religion. The Black Book might also be a forgery, but there's a debate. Because of the religion's secrecy, scholars believe this group never had an official sacred text. Yazidis are known for passing on the traditions orally through their holy men or priests. So this oral practice, that's very, very interesting. Yazidis believe that God, or Zwede, created the world from a white pearl. He put this pearl on the back of Anfar, a bird who carried it for 40,000 years until the earth evolved. God is made up of a holy trinity with Malak Tawas, a peacock angel, also known as Satan, Sheikh Adi and Sultan Ezi. Malak Tawas is also called the peacock angel, and this is also, you'll find this within the Sirah of Muhammad. And Muhammad, they've stolen this from the Zoroastrians and from these Yazidis into Islam as well. God is made up of a holy trinity with Malik Tawas, a peacock angel, blah, blah, blah. And the peacock angel is the most important in this trinity and appears every 1,000 years. Malik Tawas is God like an alter ego and leads the seven angels that come from the pearl. Westerners, Muslims, and ISIS believe Malik Tawas is Satan. Shaitan is Satan in the Quran. Yeah, more nonsense. Shaitan, another name for Malik Tawas, refused to bow down to Adam and Eve after God commanded him. Yazidis believe God and Satan made amends and reconciled. The peacock is Malik Tawas' symbol. Satan was not created by God, but born of a white pearl. Many Muslims and Christians label the religion as devil worshippers. It should be noted within the Sirah that all the spirits of heaven, that's everyone's souls before they appeared on earth, also bowed and worshipped Muhammad, which is fascinating. Satan wouldn't do this, but everyone bowed and worshipped Muhammad. So yeah. So let me see. Let's continue. Middle Eastern Yazidis speak Kurmanji. They believe in reincarnation. They pray 5 times a day, just like certain religion we know. In front of fire, they fast. That's just very Zoroastrian. They fast. They celebrate their New Year's Eve. They throw a festival of the peacock. Refuse to eat lettuce. Maybe they should refuse to eat, Brussels sprouts or something, and made a pilgrimage to Sheikh Musafar's tomb. The founder, they believe Jesus was an angel in human form and Muhammad was a prophet. They won't spit or wear the color blue. Some believe the color blue represents Noah. This is especially interesting because the flood might have been about getting rid of all the fallen angels. Yazidis are baptized and circumcised, but that's not a requirement. They are monogamous, but priests and chiefs can be polygamous. They believe they descend from Adam alone and not Eve. Okay, that's weird. Yazidis are forbidden to marry outside their culture and religion. I know that. They also practice honor killings, which victimize women who violate their laws, culture, and traditions. A few years back, a case in Germany was reported about a Yazidi girl who fell in love with a German boy and her family killed her. So, yeah, more nonsense. So this is nonsense, Gnosticism within the Yazidis. right? And they are Gnostics, according to Dina Ray, who wrote about Jesus was an angel. Now, the story of Jesus as an angel also appears in the Islamic Sirah. If you look through the Islamic Sirah, I've discussed it before, Jesus is also an angel. He has two natures, a human one and an angelic one, and he flies around. So, yeah, so Islam has taken ideas from everything. Okay, so conclusion, final slide. So that's it from me. So yeah, I make content on cultural, historical movements that impact and threaten Christianity and the Christian faith. I say things that annoy people. So as you all know, my content covers diverse topics, but also controversial topics such as Islamic law, Islamic history and occultism, hysterical atheism, nonsense, okay, the philosophy of nonsense, right? So Gnosticism and the philosophy of nonsense that it spawned, the church under threat from these ideas, sources of, and my source is always available on my Google archive. So if you go to my page, there's a little link on the top right. So you can also trap them if you place them inside a circle. Great. Okay, Nowhere Act. Welcome. Yeah. So guys, this was a little overview of nonsense, of Gnosticism in the world. And hopefully you've learned something about Islam from the, hopefully we've seen how Gnostic Islam is, how deeply Gnostic it is. So yeah, I think that is it from me. And yeah, any final questions before I wrap up here? May encourage the chat to become a member. Give up one or two to go cups of coffee for a month so it can continue. Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to buy more materials. So as Hesychasm goes back to Saint Anthony, the desert father before the split between Roman Orthodoxy. It was hashed out during the debate. I know it was hashed out, and I mean, look, a lot of things are explained away by Protestants as well. But the fact that they're explained away doesn't mean that they're explained. They're explained away. So there's an issue there. I've looked at this and I'm like, yeah, this doesn't add up. So yeah, so okay, so guys, that's it from me. It went longer than I anticipated, but I wanted to finish this. I'll probably do something else. What's your opinion on Rene Guénon and Evola? It's quite popular, and I can't remember. I've looked at it. I can't remember what it's about, to be quite honest. So thank you, Lloyd. Good night, everyone. Yeah, so guys, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you learned something. And yeah, so as you know, my topics that I discuss aren't for everyone. They don't make everyone happy. But yeah. Hopefully I am presenting facts, things that I verify. I say things that are very bold, very blunt, but I do try to provide evidence that backs up what I say. So yeah, Islam is Gnostic. So use the information. Is Lloyd Catholic? No, Lloyd is actually raised Anglican, but I live in Poland. I go to the Catholic Church because there's not many other churches out here, and besides, they're all speaking Polish, and I have no idea what they're saying. So, is baie welkom. So jullie allemaal baie welkom. Ik is baie blij dat jullie hier was en hopelijk het jullie dit geniet en iets geleerd. So, can make everyone happy at the same time. So, yeah. So, guys, thank you very much. It's 1 billion degrees here in Poland in the shade. So, yeah, thanks all. Hopefully you can use this material. Ask questions down below. My research archive is down in the description. Use that. And remember, Christianity is logos. It is truth. Everything else is just a bunch of nonsense. All right. Yeah, I know it's accepted, but I mean, then again, there's a lot of stuff accepted in Protestantism that I would consider Gnostic and just complete nonsense, utter trash. So yeah, and one fine day I'll discuss hesychasm, and I think I'll show that there's too much Gnosticism in the EO. Nie mówisz po polsku? Tak, ja nie mówię po polsku. Mówię po angielsku i po niemiecku i po afrikaans, ale nie mówię po polsku. Ja mówię bardzo trochę po polsku. Okay, ja, das war Channel. Okay, ja, danke Leute. Das war für mich sehr gut. Ich hoffe, ihr habt etwas gelernt und ja, ich sehe euch morgen. Ja, machen wir noch etwas anderes. And take care everyone. See you all.